Everybody. How are you today? I'm glad to see everyone on this beautiful day. We'd like to welcome you to our Expungement Clinic today. We want to thank Gary Reese and Alpha Epsilon Beta here on campus for helping sponsor this event. We're glad you're here. If you have not signed in, please make sure to do that on our sign-in sheet at the entrance. I know this looks a little strange, but I wanted to let you know what this is. It's a microphone. It's called our catch box. And at the end of our presentation today, there will be a Q&A session or some interactive comments and questions that you might have at the end. And we'd like for you to use that because today our TV department is filming this and they will be able to hear you and everybody else in the room can hear you. So we ask that you please use this, and you can toss it. Easy and fun to use, and it's not going to hurt it. So we'll kind of toss it to each other so that we don't have to run back and forth, and so we'll use that at the end. But I'd like to welcome you today. My name is Amy Sullivan, and I'm the Director of Library Services here. And it's my pleasure today to welcome Ms. Catherine Fuller, who is an attorney with Kentucky Legal Aid. So please join me in welcoming Ms. Catherine Fuller this morning.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me? I've got a little allergy stuff going on. You know, I just came back from spring break and, welcome back to Kentucky with all these allergies. You know, I've been an attorney for about 10 years with Kentucky Legal Aid for the past 14. And at Kentucky Legal Aid, you know, we are a nonprofit legal organization that assists individuals in our 10-county service area with civil matters such as custody, foreclosure, divorce, bankruptcy, and now criminal expungement. And I've put some intake cards there on the table when you walk in. If you want assistance with any of those things, please give us a call at the number listed. I've also printed out some pro se expungement packets, and it has a host of information concerning expungements for individuals. There in the middle, there's about 61 felonies listed. Those are the 61 felonies in the statute that are expungible under the new law in Kentucky. And finally, on that last few pages is a motion to waive the filing fees. You know, we will talk about the filing fees later on, but Kentucky's expungement filing fees are one of the highest in the nation. You know, it's currently $500 for a felony expungement, and we're trying to work with the legislator to get that down. You know, $500 is a substantial amount of money to individuals, especially convicted felons. You know, this is an informal clinic. If anyone has questions while I'm presenting about any of the slides, feel free to raise your hand and we'll throw that little blue box at you. Love the box. Well, is it on the side? Yeah, I think it's on. Having a little technical issues this morning. Of course it did it for you. House Bill 40 is what started the criminal expungement in Kentucky. Prior to July 15, 2016, convicted felons pretty much had a death sentence with their felony conviction. Prior to this date, convicted felons kept their felony with them for all of their life. Currently, there's a little over 300,000 convicted felons in the state of Kentucky. Out of those 312,000, about 90 to 100,000 are eligible for the felony expungement. What exactly is an expungement? Basically, it didn't happen. Don't you love my legal terminology there? It didn't happen. When you apply for an expungement and it's granted by the court, it vacates the conviction, it dismisses the charge with prejudice, meaning it can't be refiled against you, and expunges the criminal charges. Once it expunges those criminal charges from your criminal history, it's removed from the government databases. The clerk, and they are the keeper of the criminal records, will deny it ever existed. And this is the big thing. people do not have to disclose on employment applications that they are a convicted felon. You know, there's been some studies in the state of Kentucky that a convicted felon earns 50% less than a non-convicted felon. Now let that sink in, 50% less. So an individual that can expunge their felony conviction can basically double their earning capacity in a month. I mean, that's a big factor, a big improvement to their lives. Along with the expungement, there's a restoration of rights. That includes your gun rights. You know, Kentucky's a big hunting state. Once you have that felony expungement, as long as there's no other barriers there in place, you get your gun rights back. You get your right to vote, your right to sit on a jury, and all those other rights that a felony conviction takes away. Once the felony expungement is approved, individuals have access to housing. You know, public housing, people on a fixed income. Sometimes a felony conviction can prevent them from obtaining housing. Once you have that felony removed, then the housing opportunity is expanded for those individuals. You know, the big thing that we see at Kentucky Legal Aid is the felony expungement, access to employment. You know, there's some low-paying jobs in this area that once they see, there we go, I got it. Once they see that there's a convicted felon applying, they pretty much toss that application in the trash. You know, the job market is so hot right now that the convicted felons are having a difficult time getting a job even at Walmart, Lowe's, at minimum wage. So this allows an individual to have a bigger access to employment. It restores rights. Parents are allowed to volunteer at the children's school functions, an overall improvement of life. What type of cases are eligible for expungement? We have 4 types of cases with the new law: felony convictions, misdemeanor convictions, non-convictions, and juvenile cases. Felony convictions, that's the big one. To be eligible for a felony conviction, it must be one felony or a series of felonies arising from a single incident. You know, that's being litigated right now in the Court of Appeals, that one series of felony arising from the single incident. You know, the Court of Appeals has said that there was a case, Commonwealth versus Ford, that an individual that had pretty much a 5-day felony spree of forging checks, but had one certain case number, that was not under the statute for a series of felony. You know, it has to be one occurrence, one single occurrence. Oh no. So we're hoping to get some better case law on that. You know, this is a society of second chances, and felony expungements allow an individual to have a second chance. Now, we're not talking about 3rd, 4th, or 5th chances, but individuals should be entitled to a second chance. And with the felony expungements, we're hoping that definition is expanded. Now, along with that single felony, let me pull up making me improvise here. It must be a felony under the statute. Now, there's 61 felony expungements, and I have them, or felonies in the statute, and I have those listed in the packet. The big one that we see the most is possession of a controlled substance, 1st, 2nd, 3rd degree. You know, those are ones that we see quite often. There's also 3rd degree burglary, some ones we don't see very often, criminal possession of a forged instrument, and you can see that on your handout. There also must be 5 years from the date of completion of sentence. You know, that's not 5 years from the charge, that is 5 years from the completion of the sentence. So if you're on probation, it's 5 years from the day that you get off of probation. You must not have a prior felony expungement. You basically get one bite at the apple, so to say. And no felony or misdemeanor conviction for the last 5 years. Must have no pending felony cases. And as long as you meet all those requirements, excuse me, I've got some allergies going on, then you qualify for the felony expungement. Now, no convictions for the last 5 years. You can't have any pending charges. Basically, the statutory language is discretionary. That's for judges to determine if you meet all the requirements, if you get the felony expungement. No, judges in the area have been receptive to granting the expungement as long as you meet all of those particular requirements. We have some alternatives. Basically, don't waste your felony. If you have 2 felony cases, one is a possession of a controlled substance, first, second, or third degree, and then you have another eligible felony, then there's some alternatives out there. You can void and seal possession of drug paraphernalia. Void and seal a drug possession if you've been to treatment and you've completed your requirements of probation. So we can void and seal that felony, and then we can seek a felony expungement under the new statute under that. So you can have 2 felonies, one voided and sealed, and then the other expunged. So don't let that be a deterrent. If you have more than one felony in place, contact an attorney. You know, there's that creative legal maneuvering there. And you can contact legal aid. Our services are free. And really inquire about your eligibility. Misdemeanor convictions, they're very similar to the felony. It can be one or it can be multiple misdemeanors. You know, that's one of the differences, that you can have as many misdemeanor convictions expunged versus the one felony. Now with misdemeanors, it cannot be an enhanceable crime, such as DUI or 4th degree assault. You know, that has a longer look-back period. Again, no convictions within the last 5 years. Must be 5 years since the completion of the sentence. No sex crimes, no crimes against children. You know, misdemeanor expungements, they're a little cheaper. They're $100 per filing fee. So at least you have that option if you have a felony and then some other misdemeanors. Another avenue under the new law is non-convictions. You know, these are non-convictions would be dismissed with prejudice, acquittals, failure to indict, pretrial diversion, or crimes committed when you're a victim of human trafficking. You know, people that complete drug court, a lot of times we see their charges dismissed or diverted. And prior to 2016, those charges were not expungible, but now they can be expunged. So when they look for employment and a criminal background check is done, none of that comes up. With non-convictions, there's no filing fee, so you can get that free of charge. There's not a 5-year look-back period. It's a 60-day look-back if the case is dismissed, or 12 months if the dismissal is for failure to indict. Juvenile expungement, that's under a specific statute, KRS 610-330. These are for single felony or a series of felonies arising from the same incident. You know, similar language to the felony expungement statute, but there's a 2-year time limit for those. And that is the only expungement that does not require the certification. You know, for felony and misdemeanor expungements, you have to apply for a certification from the Kentucky State Police. And that is where they give you your criminal background, And to the side, they put either you're eligible for that criminal expungement or you're not eligible. You know, that is the starting point for any expungement. And that fee is $40. You know, they throw all those fees in there. For $40, KSB, Kentucky State Police, will do that certification for you. Once you get that certificate, then you apply for the expungement. And you apply for that expungement in the county where the criminal charge is located. And again, that's only for the state of Kentucky. If you have criminal charges in other states, then you have to go to that particular state for the expungement. Filing fees, we touched on that a little while ago. It's $500 for a felony expungement, $100 for a misdemeanor expungement, and nothing for a non-conviction. Now, the big thing about that certification fee is once you receive it, you have 30 days to file for the expungement. If you do not file for that expungement within 30 days, it expires. Then you have to start the process all over again. Another $40 fee, another certification, and an application. So it's recommended that you get all your paperwork together before you file. That way, when you get your certification, you can file it and hopefully get the expungement. Now, with the filing fee, if the felony expungement is not granted, then you get $450 back. So at least they give some of your money back, not all of it. With misdemeanors, you get $50 back. And again, nothing for the non-conviction. Now, with the expungement process, with felony expungement, you're probably looking at about a 6-month time period before the court either grants it or denies it. What I recommend for individuals is talking to the Commonwealth attorney in the county where your criminal charges are located. Because if the Commonwealth attorney is on board, you have a greater chance of getting your felonies expunged. That's where I would recommend, again, that you contact an attorney so they can talk to the county attorney on your behalf. Again, it's not necessary, but it is a complicated process, so it's always best to have someone that is familiar with maneuvering the expungement process. With misdemeanor convictions and expungement, you're looking at about a 30 to 45 day timeline from the date of filing. You know, I have this is the first time I've done this without the PowerPoint, so I apologize. I do have a quiz, and I don't have the PowerPoint up to do the quiz, so I'm just going to ask the question. Okay, what percentage of convicted felons in Kentucky are not allowed to vote? Okay, we have A, and just raise your hand, 10 to 25% of convicted felons are not allowed to vote. Does anyone think it's A? What about B, 25 to 50? No, smart group today. C, 51 to 80%. D, 80% or more. Good job. We know what we're talking about today. In fact, that percentage is 100%. 100% of convicted felons in Kentucky are not allowed to vote. Once you get that felony conviction, your voting rights are taken away. Unlike other states in the nation, once a convicted felon completes their sentence, their voting rights are restored. Kentucky is one of 3 states in the nation that does not do the automatic restoration of civil rights. Second question. Where does Kentucky rank on the list of felony convictions felony disenfranchisement by percentage of population. That's the percentage of people not allowed to vote because of their felony conviction. A, is it Kentucky in the top 15 in the nation? B, 16 to 25. C, 26 to 35. D, 36 to 50. Come on, people, it's not lunchtime yet. Kentucky ranks number 2 in the nation for percentage of people not allowed to vote by population. That is not a good number. What percentage of Kentucky's population is disenfranchised because of felony conviction? That's the overall population in Kentucky that's not allowed to vote because of a felony conviction. Okay, I'm watching everyone. I better see everyone's hand raised in one of these areas. Is it A, 3.41, B, 5.63, C, 9.14, or D, 12.36? How many people don't care? Oh, it is 9%. We had a few people right in here. Good job. So let that sink in a little bit. 9% of Kentucky's population cannot vote because of a felony conviction. 9%. Now let's talk about the African American population in Kentucky. What percent of the African American population in Kentucky cannot vote because of a felony conviction? A, is it 9%? B, 15%? Got a few. C, 18%? Got one more. Or D, 26%? Very good. It is 26%. D. Let that sink in. 26% of African American individuals in Kentucky cannot vote because of a felony conviction. That is not a good percentage. Right, so 26% of African Americans in Kentucky cannot vote. How does that compare to the nation when it comes to African Americans disenfranchised because of felony conviction? So we're talking about across the 50 states. Is it A, 4% of African Americans in the nationwide population that cannot vote? A. Is it B, 7%? C, 22%? Or D, 30%? Okay. It is actually B, 7%. So think of that figure compared to Kentucky's. Kentucky is 26% of the African American population. Nationwide, it's only 7%. So what does that say about Kentucky? It's not good. Is it working? You know, we have this new law that was passed July 15, 2016. Is it working? The total number of felony expungements filed from the enactment of the new statute to May of last year is about 1,400. 1,429 petitions for felony expungement has been filed across the state of Kentucky. Is that a good number? No. About 1,325 were granted. Again, let that number sink in, a little over 1,400. Now, the slides up there when it was working showed that there were over 312,000 convicted felons in Kentucky, with almost 100,000 of those felons that are eligible. But yet only 1,400 petitions have been filed. So what is going on? That's why we're having these clinics. We're trying to get the word out to reach those 100,000 eligible felons to help get that benefit there. I don't know if it's a combination of not knowing about the felony expungement or if it's that $500 filing fee that is also a deterrent. And we're trying to work with area judges to get that filing fee waived. If individuals are indigent and cannot afford the $500 filing fee, we're trying to get them to waive that and have access to the court for indigent individuals. If you're not eligible for a felony expungement, if you're 61, if your felony is not one of the 61 felonies in the statute, again, contact an attorney. We can do, hopefully, some creative legal maneuvering to get you the benefit of the expungement. Another avenue you may think of is a pardon from the governor. You know, a full pardon from the governor is few and far between. You can get a partial pardon where you have your civil rights restored, but a full pardon where you have, you know, all your rights restored is something that we don't see very often in Kentucky, but it's worth a try. If you don't have any other options available under the statute, you know, go ahead and apply for the full pardon and hopefully you'll get it. If you get the full pardon, then your felony offense can be expunged if it's a full pardon. So don't give up. Don't let it deter you. At least try. Try to better your life. Try to get those felonies and misdemeanors removed from your criminal history and try to do better for yourself. And again, contact legal aid. The number is back there on the desk. And I believe that's all I have for my presentation. And I apologize that the PowerPoint was not up there. You know, it's a little better when you have the questions up on the monitor and you have some interaction there. So now I'd like to open it up for questions and answers. And she'll throw that little blue box at you.
I'll toss it to you.
Yes.
You're far away.
So you have one shot at an expungement, is that right? So if you get a successful expungement, then that's the last time you can get one, is that
Yes.
right?
Yes, you're only entitled to one felony expungement during your lifetime. And we're trying to expand the felonies. You know, there's 61 listed in the statute. We're trying to get that expanded to include trafficking and some other common felonies that we see in the area. We're hoping that the legislator will expand it, but that has not happened yet. But that's something that we are working toward.
Follow-up question, if you're not successful with an expungement, you can try again, or can you not try again?
You can try as many times as you like, but if the court denies it once, they're more than likely to deny it again because it's the same judge, unless the law is changed. Now, what's up at the legislature now is they're trying to introduce more felonies with a graduated look-back period. So right now, there's a 5-year look-back period for certain felonies in the statute. They're talking about expanding it to include trafficking, but including a 15-year look-back period instead of a 5. So the longer the time that you have from your felony conviction, the better it's going to be with your chances in court.
Thank you.
Trafficking, human trafficking, could you elaborate on that? One different, I guess, than some of the other mentioned?
Different what? Trafficking in a controlled substance?
No, human trafficking, is that what you're talking about?
Oh, human trafficking. If a person is a part of a human trafficking system and they commit a felony, such as prostitution, selling drugs, then that can be expungible under the felony expungement. We don't see a lot of that in this area. That's not to say it's not out there, but that's a prong in the felony statute to allow victims of human trafficking to clear their record.
So if you had a felony charged against you, but the charges were dropped, is that a non-conviction? Would that be eligible?
Yes, that's a non-conviction, and that qualifies for no filing fee.
Federal crimes and state crimes, the difference between the two and the expungement possibilities for each.
Yes, this is
We understand the
state offenses. This is not federal offenses. Federal laws have a whole different set of requirements. So this is only for state convictions for the state of Kentucky. I gave the presentation over in Marshall County a few weeks ago, and I had a couple in there, and they had charges in Ohio. I'm like, well, you'll have to go to Ohio to get those expunged if it's available in Ohio. And they were like, well, we're residents of Kentucky. And well, it doesn't matter. It's where your criminal charges are located where the laws govern. So this is for criminal cases in the state of Kentucky. Good question, though. A lot of good questions.
Okay, the non-convictions, does it matter what those are? Like the other ones, I know you said some of like sex crimes and stuff like that matters, but the non-convictions has no sort of...
That's correct.
Okay.
There's not a limit or a provision for a certain amount of non-conviction. It's any crime. So say if you were charged with murder, it went and it was a non-conviction, you went to a jury trial and they said you're not guilty, then that can be expunged as a non-conviction with no filing fee.
Okay. Okay.
So, what's the diversion? Is that like, is the non-convictions as well?
Yes.
Okay, so let's say somebody has a court document saying that they can get early expungement upon their pretrial diversion, ends next year. Is that possible?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Like, okay, court documents saying that they get their convictions or whatever they're called expunged early, then what's the time frame on the pretrial diversion documents?
It would be 12 months from the dismissal,
Okay,
because that would be a non-conviction.
okay,
So you would have to wait. With pretrial diversion, usually there's a time period that it's diverted, and once you complete that time period, then it'll be dismissed. And so that dismissal is a non-conviction, and you have to wait 12 months from that dismissal.
okay,
And it has to be dismissed with prejudice.
okay.
So that way they can't come back and refile. And when you pull your criminal history, you want to make sure that there's nothing pending or dismissed without prejudice, because you want to clean that up prior to filing to avoid any issues with the expungement.
Okay.
Yeah, so Kentucky is one of the few states, auto restoration, doesn't have the auto restoration of your rights.
That is
What are the
correct.
implications of that?
What is what?
What are the implications of that?
Well, we don't want to get into a political debate on this. But, I'm hoping that Kentucky will change that. One of the other states that has done that was Florida, and they just passed law last year to start with that automatic restoration for felons that have completed their sentence. So I'm hoping Kentucky will get on board and provide that automatic restoration for the felon once they complete their time. You know, they've done the crime, they've done their time, give them the right to vote back, let them be a part of society. You know, removing that from them is very inhumane, and we hope that Kentucky will do away with that and allow for the restoration of the voting rights. You have a free attorney up here now. I was going to say, take advantage of it.
So even though there's no filing fee, you would still send the $40 package to the state police and ask that that be done?
Yes, you still have to have that $40 certification. Every application or petition for expungement, whether it be a non-acquittal felony or a misdemeanor, must have that certification from Kentucky State Police. And there's no way to get around the $40 fee for that. There's no waiver under the statute for that. You just have to pay the $40.
So is it $4 for a non-conviction for a misdemeanor? Are they separate?
No, you can use one certification for both, or really as many petitions as you want to file, as long as it's within that 30-day time period before it expires. That's why it's beneficial to have everything in order when you start the process. Any other questions? No, I'm really excited about expungements. I'm glad that Kentucky has stepped forward and allowed convicted felons a way to, establish a clean slate and clear their criminal history. I've seen people that have a felony conviction 10, 20 years, and they've completely changed their lives. And this law is something to get excited about, because then they remove that stigma, that felony conviction. They don't have to check the box when they apply for a job. Yes, I'm a convicted felon. When they go to their school, their children's school, and apply for, to take a field trip or school activities, they don't have to say, well, I do have a felony conviction from 20 years ago. That stigma is removed from them. And this new law is a great way to allow someone that has changed their life to better their lives. No, you can only have one felony expungement. And if you... Right. Well, it would depend on what your criminal history is. If you have one felony case and it's under the 61 felonies in the statute, I would suggest that you go ahead and do it. To wait is for people that have a felony conviction that's not included in the statute, like trafficking in a controlled substance, conspiracy to traffic, things like that. And if there's multiple felonies, contact legal aid, contact an attorney, because there may be ways to get around that. We took an individual that had a 17-page criminal history with 4 felony convictions down to no felonies, no misdemeanors, cleaning their slate. And most people would look at that and say, oh, they have 4 felonies, they're not eligible under the statute. But they were. You just needed some of that creative legal maneuvering. Lawyers are good about that. Any other questions? Well, I apologize for the computer glitches, and I'm a little under the weather, so I appreciate everyone sitting through it, even without any PowerPoint. And I guess that's all I have, unless someone has some other questions. You can take advantage. Free attorney up here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.